The great hall of the Galactic Council stood empty except for one being, pressed his crystalline hands against the console, watching the same terrible images repeat on the screen. Another world gone, another billion souls consumed by the machines. The Devourers had returned. For 3,000 years they had slept in the void between galaxies. Now they were awake and hungry. World after world fell to their advance. The machines didn't negotiate. They didn't communicate. They simply arrived, stripped a planet down to its core, and moved to the next system. Had watched his own die 2 cycles ago. He was one of the last of his kind. The Council had tried everything. They sent diplomats. The Devourers killed them. They built shields. The machines broke through. They evacuated populations. There was nowhere left to run. The 7 species of the Council were peaceful. They had evolved on gentle worlds with light gravity and calm weather. War was something from their ancient past, before they reached the stars and found each other. They had built a civilization on cooperation and shared knowledge. But cooperation couldn't stop the Devourers. Activated the long-range transmitter. The Council had forbidden this. They said it was too dangerous to call out to unknown space. The dark reaches were unexplored for good reason. Every probe sent there had been destroyed by radiation, extreme gravity, or conditions that made no sense. He didn't care anymore. His people were dead. If something dangerous lived in the dark reaches, at least it might slow down the Devourers. The message was simple, a mathematical sequence, a star chart, and 3 words that translated roughly to "help us please." Sent it into the dark and waited to die. 3 cycles passed. The Devourers consumed 2 more systems. The Council prepared for the end. They gathered their people on the last safe worlds and said their goodbyes. Then the sensors screamed. Ships were emerging from the dark reaches. Not elegant vessels with smooth curves and shining hulls. These were brutal things. Gray metal covered in burns and scars. Strange symbols painted on their sides. They moved with purpose, cutting through space like predators on the hunt. The Council's defense fleet moved to intercept, weapons charging. Then a transmission came through. The language was harsh and angular, nothing like the musical tones of Council speech. The computers struggled to translate. Received your message. We are human from planet Earth. Where is the threat? Human, the word meant nothing to the Council. They had never heard of Earth. Replied with shaking hands. He sent the data on the Devourers, their location, their strength, their unstoppable advance. The response came quickly. Understood. Requesting permission to dock. We need to see your data in person. The Council hesitated. These unknown beings wanted to board their station, but what choice did they have? Gave permission. The human ship approached the main station. It was smaller than expected but dense, heavy. The airlocks connected and the door opened. The Council representatives stepped back in shock. The creatures that walked through stood on 2 legs. They had forward-facing eyes like predators. Their skin was exposed, covered in marks and old scars. Their frames were thick with muscle. They moved with a confidence that spoke of violence survived. The lead human removed his helmet. His face was hard, with eyes that had seen too much. "I am Captain Minu," he said. The translator made his words understandable but couldn't soften their edge. "This is and we came as soon as we got your call." Tried to speak but couldn't find words. These beings radiated danger. Every instinct screamed at him to run. A female human with scars across her face looked around the station. "Nice place. Bit light on the gravity though. What is this .4? .38 said, checking a device on his arm. "And the air is thin, 12% oxygen." "We can work with that," Minu said. He looked at. "Show us everything you have on these Devourers." They moved to the command center. The humans studied the data with focused intensity. They asked strange questions. They wanted to know about hull composition and heat tolerance and structural weak points. They talked about things called kinetic weapons and boarding actions. Explained that the Devourers operated in extreme conditions, temperatures of 400 degrees, radiation that would kill any organic being in seconds, gravitational forces that would crush their ships. Minyu nodded. We have deserts hotter than 400 degrees, radiation, we brought suits, gravity, Earth is 1G, we train in 3. What is Earth? Asked. Smiled, it wasn't a friendly expression. Earth is a storms that tear cities apart, predators with teeth and claws, diseases too small to see, cold that freezes your blood, heat that boils your skin, earthquakes, volcanoes, meteors from space. Everything on our planet tried to kill us. How did you survive? Whispered. We got meaner than everything else, said simply. Minyu pulled up a star chart. Show me where the Devourers are now. We need to see them in action before we plan our attack. Attack couldn't believe what he was hearing. You would fight them. You called for help, Minyu said. That's why we're here. We don't run from fights, we end them. The humans began working immediately. They requested data. They studied the Council's failed defense attempts. They talked in rapid bursts, using words the translator couldn't handle. Watching them felt something he hadn't felt in cycles. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Hope. These creatures from the dark, these humans from there, weren't afraid. They looked at the Devourers the way predators look at prey. Maybe thought, we called the right beings after all. The council chamber had never been used like this before. Humans filled the space with equipment that hummed and clicked. Wires ran everywhere. Screens showed data in formats the council computers couldn't read. The humans had brought their own systems and weren't asking for permission. Jinna sat at the main console, her fingers moving across controls faster than could follow. She was the tactical analyst, Minyu had said. Her job was to find ways to kill things efficiently. Their hull plating is interesting, Jinna said, pulling up images of a Devourer ship. It adapts to energy weapons, disperses the impact across the whole surface. Smart. Can we break it? Minyu asked. Easily. They're designed for energy defense. Kinetic weapons will punch straight through. Didn't understand. What are kinetic weapons? Looked up from where she was checking her equipment. Rocks. We throw rocks at them, very fast rocks. That seems primitive, one of the council members said. Primitive works, replied. A chunk of metal moving at 0.9 light speed doesn't care how advanced your shields are. Physics wins. The human approached carefully. He held a scanner that beeped softly. May I examine you? I need to understand council physiology. Agreed nervously. The scanner passed over his crystalline body. His face showed confusion, then something like horror. Your bone structure, said slowly. It's incredibly fragile, and your internal pressure is barely higher than the outside environment. How do you survive injuries? We avoid them, said. Our species does not fight. Scanned another council member, one of the species. His expression grew worse. 0.6G, thin atmosphere, no exposure to hard radiation, no major predators in your evolutionary history. He looked at Minyu. Captain, these beings are from paradise worlds. They've never had to fight for survival. Explains why they're losing, muttered. Felt shame burn through him, but he couldn't argue. Everything the humans said was true. The council species had evolved on worlds that nurtured them. Gentle gravity, stable climates, abundant resources. They had reached for the stars because they were curious, not because they were fleeing danger. Tell us about Earth, said. Help us understand. The humans exchanged glances, shrugged. Show them the intro file. Jinna pulled up a video. Images of Earth filled the screen. It looked beautiful at first. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. Then the images changed. A massive storm covered half a continent. The winds, the translator said, reached 300 kilometers per hour. The humans called it a hurricane. They happened regularly. Next came a volcano, spewing rock and fire into the sky. The explosion was visible from space. Entire cities buried in ash. The humans rebuilt them in the same place. Then earthquakes, the ground splitting open, buildings collapsing, tidal waves crashing into coastlines. "This is normal?" asked in horror. "That's just the geology," said. "Want to see the biology?" The next images showed creatures that shouldn't exist. Massive predators with claws and teeth, tiny organisms that caused plagues, insects that injected venom, plants that killed with poison. The ocean was full of things that could swallow a human whole. "Everything wants to eat you," explained, "or poison you, or crush you, or infect you, so we learned to eat them first." Minyu pointed to an image of early humans. "Our ancestors didn't have claws or fangs or armor. We had brains and stubbornness. We made tools. We made fire. We hunted things bigger and stronger than us by being smarter." "We almost went extinct a dozen times," Jinna added. "Ice ages, supervolcanoes, disease, starvation. We survived by adapting faster than our world could kill us." Watched as the video showed human history, wars that lasted generations, plagues that killed billions, disasters that would have ended any council species. The humans just kept going. They learned. They rebuilt. They spread across their hostile world and claimed every corner of it. "When we finally reached space," said, "we thought it would be easier than Earth. It wasn't. Space is just a different kind of dangerous, but we're good at dangerous." A council member, a floating gas bag species, spoke hesitantly. "The Devourers operate in conditions that kill us instantly. Radiation levels of 8,000 units. Temperatures from -200 to +600 degrees. Gravity wells of 3G or higher. You cannot survive this." "We can't," pulled up his own data. "We've worked in worse. Deep sea vents on Earth hit 600 degrees and 300 atmospheres of pressure. We built habitats there. Radiation. We survived 2 nuclear wars. We know radiation." "The gravity would crush you," the council member insisted. Stood up and walked to a clear space. She tapped controls on her suit. Suddenly she dropped into a crouch, her muscles straining. "I'm at 3G right now. My suit has gravity compensation. I can fight in this for 6 hours before I need a break." She deactivated it and stood normally. "Our pilots train at 5G. We've had astronauts survive exposure to hard vacuum. We've had soldiers fight with broken bones and keep going. Our medic once performed surgery on herself because no one else was available." Couldn't comprehend it. These beings had made themselves into weapons through sheer necessity. They had conquered a world that wanted them dead, and then looked at space as just another challenge. "Why did you come?" asked quietly. "You don't know us, we can offer you nothing, why risk yourselves?" Minyu was quiet for a moment. "Because you asked, because something needs stopping, because if we don't help, who will?" He looked around at the council members. "You're not warriors, you're builders and thinkers and artists. That's good. The galaxy needs that. But it also needs someone willing to stand between you and the things that want to destroy what you've built." "We're not heroes," said. "We're just too stubborn to let bullies win." Jinna stood up from her console. "Analysis complete. I have a battle plan. It's going to be messy and dangerous, and some of us probably won't make it back. But we can kill these machines." "When do we start?" Minyu asked. "The Devourers are moving toward the system. They'll arrive in 4 cycles. We can intercept them there." Minyu nodded. "Then we have 4 cycles to prepare. Let's get to work." The humans moved with purpose, each knowing their role. They didn't doubt. They didn't question whether it was possible. They simply prepared to do what needed to be done. Watched them and understood something profound. The galaxy had evolved beauty and wisdom and peace, but it had forgotten how to be dangerous. These humans hadn't forgotten. They couldn't. Their world had never let them. And now that dangerous nature might be the only thing that could save them all. The human fleet moved through space like a pack of predators. 27 ships in tight formation, each one and battle-worn. The Council observation vessel followed at a safe distance, sensors recording everything. Watched the screens with fear and hope mixed together. The system was already dying. The Devourer swarm had arrived early and was stripping the fourth planet. Millions were dead. The survivors had hours at most. Human fleet, this is Council observation, transmitted. The Devourers number 43 capital ships and over 300 smaller vessels. You are outnumbered. Perhaps we should reconsider. Minu's voice came back calm and steady. Numbers don't matter much when you have the right weapons. All ships begin approach. Target priority Alpha. Fire on my mark. The human ships accelerated. The Devourers noticed and turned to face them. Energy weapons charged, the same weapons that had cut through Council shields like they were nothing. Enemy firing, Jinna reported. Radiation beams, plasma cannons, and something that disrupts molecular bonds. Shields holding, said. Lead plating is absorbing the radiation. Ceramic layers are dispersing the plasma. The molecular disruptor is having no effect on our hull composition. Couldn't believe it. The weapons that had destroyed Council fleets were barely scratching the human ships. How was this possible? We built our ships for the dark reaches, Minu explained, as if reading his thoughts. Radiation from dead stars, plasma from nebula storms. Gravity shears that tear matter apart. If our ships can survive the dark reaches, they can survive anything. The human fleet reached firing range. All ships, Minu said. Rail guns free, fire at will. The humans didn't use energy weapons. Instead, long barrels extended from their ships and spat metal. The projectiles were simple tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons. Magnetic acceleration pushed them to incredible speeds. The Devourer's adaptive shields activated, designed to deflect energy attacks. The metal rods didn't care. They punched through shields, through armor, through the machines themselves. The first salvo destroyed 6 Devourer ships completely. Reload time 6 seconds, reported, firing again. More ships died. The Devourers tried to adapt, shifting their shields to physical defense. The humans immediately switched tactics. Missiles away, announced. Hundreds of missiles streaked toward the Devourer fleet. They weren't guided by complex computers. They were simple, dumb rockets filled with explosives. The Devourers tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. The missiles impacted and detonated. The explosions were chemical, not nuclear, primitive by galactic standards. But in the vacuum of space, the shrapnel spread in perfect spheres, shredding anything in range. Enemy fleet is breaking formation, Jinna said. They're trying to surround us. Good, Minu replied. Let them get close. Boarding teams prepare for deployment. His crystalline form went rigid. Boarding. You cannot mean to board their ships. Watch us, said. Small pods launched from the human ships. Each one carried 6 soldiers in armored suits. They flew toward the Devourer vessels like meteors. Point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but the pods were too fast, too small, too many. The pods impacted against Devourer hulls and cut through. The soldiers inside poured into the enemy ships. Switched his sensors to follow one boarding team. The leader was a soldier who moved with brutal efficiency. His suit was thick and heavy, covered in weapons and tools. The interior of the Devourer ship was hell. Radiation levels spiked instantly. The temperature was 500 degrees. Gravity fluctuated wildly between 0 and 4G. Automated defenses fired from every direction. His team moved through it all like they were taking a walk. Their suits absorbed the radiation. Temperature regulation kept them alive. Magnetic boots handled the gravity changes. They returned fire with weapons that used controlled explosions to throw metal pellets at hypersonic speeds. Contact, reported. His voice was steady despite the chaos. Engaging automated defenders, right flank, watch R6. The soldiers worked together perfectly. They had trained for this, realized. They had practiced fighting in impossible conditions because Earth had taught them that impossible was just another word for difficult. Temperature rising, one soldier reported, now at 700 degrees. Suits can handle 1,000, replied, keep moving. They fought deeper into the ship. The Devourer machines tried everything. They flooded corridors with radiation that would have killed a council being in microseconds. They created gravity wells that should have crushed organic tissue. They raised temperatures high enough to melt steel. The humans adjusted and continued forward. Located the central core, said, planting charges. This is menu, status. Core charges set, team is withdrawing, took some damage, his suit breached, he's on emergency oxygen. Can he move? He says he's fine, Captain. We're heading to extraction. The boarding teams fought their way back to their pods. Behind them, the charges detonated. The Devourer ships exploded from within, their cores destroyed by simple chemical explosives. In space, the main battle continued. The human fleet moved with practiced precision. They used weapons the Council had forgotten or never known: kinetic kill vehicles, fragmentation warheads, electromagnetic pulses that fried circuits, even simple metal balls fired at high velocity. Nothing fancy, nothing elegant, just efficient violence. Enemy numbers down to 21 capital ships, Jinnah reported. They're trying to retreat. Don't let them, Minu ordered. If even one escapes, it can rebuild the swarm, kill them all. The human ships pursued. The battle became a hunt. The Devourers were faster and more maneuverable, but the humans were relentless. They chased the machines through the system, destroying them one by one. Watched a human pilot named chase a Devourer ship through a debris field. The machine tried to use the rocks as cover. Followed, her ship twisting and turning at G-forces that should have killed her. She stayed conscious through pure willpower and training, firing rail gun rounds until the enemy ship broke apart. Last enemy vessel destroyed, announced. System is clear. The human fleet regrouped. Damage reports came in. 5 ships needed repairs. 17 soldiers were injured. 2 were critical, but they had won. The entire Devourer swarm was destroyed. Couldn't speak. The Council had lost fleet after fleet to these machines. The humans had annihilated them in less than 2 hours. Council observation, this is Minu. The threat is neutralized. We're recovering our wounded and will proceed to the next Devourer location. Send us the coordinates. There are 3 more swarms, managed to say, each as large as this one. Then we have work to do, Minu replied. That's fine, we didn't come here for a short fight. The human fleet began moving again, ready for the next battle. They didn't celebrate their victory. They didn't rest. They simply prepared to do it all again. Because that's what did. They fought, they endured, they won. And they never, ever stopped. The medical bay on the human flagship was nothing like Council healing centers. Those were quiet places filled with soft light and gentle music. This was harsh and efficient. Bright lights, metal tables, the smell of disinfectant and blood. Moved between the wounded with quick, practiced movements. She was the chief medical officer, a small human female with steady hands and tired eyes. Around her, soldiers lay on tables in various states of injury. Had been given permission to observe. He needed to understand these beings who had saved his people. What he saw disturbed him deeply. Was on the first table. His left arm was gone, severed cleanly by a plasma weapon during the boarding action. The wound was cauterized, but the damage was permanent. Worked quickly, stabilizing him and preparing the stump for a mechanical replacement. How do you feel? Asked. Like I lost an arm, replied. His voice was tight with pain but also tinged with dark humor. At least it was my left. I shoot right-handed. You'll be back on duty in 2 weeks once we fit the prosthetic. 2 weeks make it one. We have more devourers to kill. Didn't argue. She simply nodded and moved to the next patient. Was there, the pilot who had chased enemies through debris fields. Her skin was pale and she was vomiting into a container. Radiation sickness. Her ship's shielding had failed during the battle and she had absorbed a lethal dose. How bad? Asked when she could speak. Bad, said honestly. You took enough radiation to kill most beings 3 times over. You'll be sick for months, maybe years. We can treat it, but the damage is permanent. Will I be able to fly? Eventually, but not for a while. Closed her eyes. Get me better fast. The fleet needs pilots. On another table, one of the engineers had 3 broken ribs and a fractured skull from when his ship had taken a direct hit. He was conscious and arguing with about getting back to work. My ship needs repairs, insisted. Your ship is fine. You have a skull fracture. I can work with a skull fracture. Just give me some pain medication. You need to rest for at least 3 days. I'll rest when the devourers are dead. Watch this exchange in horror. These humans were broken and bleeding and sick with radiation. Any council being with these injuries would be in suspended animation for months of healing. These humans wanted to keep working. Why do they do this? Asked quietly. Why push themselves so hard? Finished bandaging's head before answering. Because stopping means thinking. Thinking means remembering. Remembering means feeling. And feeling makes it harder to do what needs to be done. She looked at with those tired eyes. We're not brave. We're just really good at ignoring our body's survival instincts. Moved to another section of the medical bay. Was there the soldier whose suit had breached during the boarding action. He had been exposed to hard vacuum for almost 40 seconds. By all logic, he should be dead. He was sitting up, breathing from an oxygen mask. His skin was damaged from explosive decompression. His eyes were bloodshot. But he was alive and complaining about being kept in medical. I've been hurt worse in training, said. This is nothing. You were exposed to vacuum, said patiently. Your lungs nearly collapsed. You have nitrogen bubbles in your bloodstream. You need treatment. Fine, treat me, but make it fast. Couldn't stay quiet anymore. How are you alive? Vacuum exposure for that long should have killed you. Shrugged, then winced at the pain. Humans are hard to kill. We evolved from persistence hunters. We didn't have claws or fangs, so we just outlasted our prey, chased them until they collapsed from exhaustion. That stubbornness is in our DNA. Death has to work really hard to take us down. Later found Minu on the observation deck. The captain was alone, staring out at the stars. He looked different here, tired, older. The weight of command showed in the lines on his face. 17 wounded, said softly. 2 critical, all for beings you don't even know. 16 now, Minu replied. We lost 1. Ensign died from his injuries an hour ago. He was 19 years old. I'm sorry. Minu nodded but didn't look away from the stars. He knew the risks. They all do. We don't force anyone to serve. Every person on these ships volunteered. Why would they volunteer for this? Because someone has to. Minu finally turned to face. Your people built something beautiful, a peaceful civilization spanning multiple worlds, art and science and cooperation. That's worth protecting. But peace only exists because someone is willing to stand between it and the dark. That's us. But the cost, said. Your people are injured, dying, suffering. How do you endure it? Minu was quiet for a long moment. Pain is just information. It tells us something is wrong so we can fix it. Fear is a warning system. It kept our ancestors alive on Earth. Death is just another problem to solve. We don't ignore these things. We acknowledge them and then we decide they don't control us. That seems impossible. It's not impossible, it's just trained. Earth made us this way. Every generation faced extinction and survived. We learned that the universe doesn't care about fair. It doesn't care about right or wrong. It just is. So we adapted. We became the thing that doesn't quit, the thing that keeps going when logic says to stop. Joined them, her face showing fresh scars from the battle. Captain, the fleet is ready to move to the next Devourer location. Repairs are complete. The wounded, Minyu asked. Those who can fight are returning to duty. The critical cases are stable. Says we're good to go. Minyu nodded. Prepare to jump in 1 hour. Left stared at Minyu in disbelief. Your people are barely recovered. You lost someone, and you're going to fight again. Yes. Why not rest, heal, give yourselves time? Because while we rest, the Devourers kill more of your people. Because time is a luxury we don't have. Because this is what we do. Minyu looked back at the stars. You asked why we endure the pain. Here's the truth. It's not that we don't feel it. We feel every wound, every loss, every moment of fear. But we decided a long time ago that feeling pain doesn't mean we stop. It just means we hurt while we work. That's not living, said. That's just surviving. Maybe, but survival is what we're best at. And right now, that's what you need. Understood then. The humans weren't fearless heroes. They were damaged beings from a damaged world who had learned to function despite being broken. They carried their wounds and their dead and their trauma, and they kept moving forward because stopping meant giving up. And giving up meant death. I don't know if I should thank you or pity you, said honestly. Minyu smiled slightly. Both is fine, just point us at the next threat. The human fleet prepared to jump. Inside, wounded soldiers returned to their posts. Engineers worked on damaged systems. Pilots climbed into their ships despite radiation sickness and broken bones. They didn't do it because they were forced. They did it because this was what did. They endured, they fought, they paid the price. And they never stopped. The last Devourer hive core exploded in silence. Fire bloomed in the vacuum and then died, leaving only debris. The war was over. 6 cycles of constant battle. 4 Devourer swarms destroyed. The machines that had threatened to consume the galaxy were gone. The human fleet regrouped in orbit above the councils. What had started as 27 ships was now 19. The rest were destroyed or too damaged to repair. Every remaining ship bore scars. Every crew member bore wounds. But they had won. The council called for a gathering. Every species sent representatives. They filled the great hall, thousands of beings from across the galaxy. They came to see the humans who had saved them. Stood at the center platform with Minyu beside him. The human captain looked uncomfortable with all the attention. He was a soldier, not a politician. But he stood straight and met their gazes. The Devourers are gone, announced. His voice carried through the hall. Our civilization survives because of the humans, because they answered our call, because they fought when we could not. Applause filled the chamber. The council species showed appreciation in their own ways. Musical tones from the gas beings, light patterns from the photosynthetic ones, physical gestures from those with limbs. It was a symphony of gratitude. Minyu raised a hand for silence. We did what needed doing, nothing more, but there's something you need to understand. The Devourers are gone, but the galaxy is still dangerous. There will be other threats, other enemies. What will you do when we're not here? The question hung in the air. The council members looked at each other uneasily. They knew the truth. Without the humans, they were defenseless. We would like to offer humanity a place on the council, the lead representative said. It was a gas bag being named ancient and wise. A permanent seat, a voice in galactic affairs, and we have a request. What request? Minyu asked. Stay, help us build defenses, teach us how to protect ourselves. The galaxy needs what you have, not just your weapons, but your knowledge, your experience, your way of thinking. Minyu looked at his crew, nodded, gave a thumbs up. Jinna smiled slightly. The message was clear. They would support whatever he decided. We'll stay, Minyu said, but we do it our way. No committees that take months to make decisions while people die. No surrendering because something looks impossible. If we're going to protect this galaxy, we do it with action, not words. Agreed, said immediately. We will give you whatever resources you need. Over the following cycles, the humans began to change the galaxy, not through force, but through example and teaching. Established shipyards in places the Council had considered uninhabitable. A moon orbiting a gas giant with crushing gravity became a manufacturing center. An asteroid field thick with radiation became a resource extraction site. A rogue planet in deep space, frozen and dark, became a military base. The Council watched in amazement as humans turned hostile environments into advantages. They didn't avoid danger. They used it, built in places no enemy would expect, created fortifications where no one else could survive. Jinnah trained new military units. She took volunteers from Council species and taught them to think like predators instead of prey. The training was hard. Many quit. But those who stayed learned valuable lessons. Not how to use weapons, but how to overcome fear, how to push past pain, how to keep fighting when everything said to stop. You're not trying to make us into humans, one trainee observed. It was a reptilian being named, who had lost his family to the Devourers. No, Jinnah agreed. We're teaching you to use what you have. Humans succeeded because we adapted to our strengths. You need to find yours. We can't make you into, but we can teach you to think like survivors. Recovered from his injuries and fitted with a mechanical arm, led the new Guardian fleet. It was a mixed force, humans and Council species working together. The humans handled the dangerous work while the Council species contributed their own talents, advanced sensors, faster engines, energy shields that, while useless against kinetics, worked well against other threats. The combination was stronger than either side alone. Worked with Council scientists to understand galactic biology better. He was fascinated by how life had evolved differently across the galaxy. The Council species were optimized for efficiency and peace. Humans were optimized for survival and adaptability. Neither approach is wrong, explained to a group of students. Your species evolved in environments that nurtured you. That let you focus on art and science and philosophy. Humanity evolved in an environment that wanted us dead. That made us focus on survival and combat. The galaxy needs both. Sola, a human who specialized in culture and communication, helped bridge the gap between human thinking and Council thinking. She explained human concepts in ways the Council could understand. Why humans valued individual action over group consensus. Why they prepared for worst-case scenarios. Why they never truly relaxed. Humans live in a constant state of readiness, Sola told a Council delegation. Not because we're paranoid, but because Earth taught us that danger can come at any moment. A storm, a quake, a predator. We learn to always be aware, always be prepared. It's exhausting, but it keeps us alive. Months passed, then years. The human presence in the galaxy grew, but they didn't conquer or dominate. They protected and taught. They built bases in the dark reaches, places where they could operate at full capacity without the restrictions of gentle worlds. When new threats emerged, as they always did, the humans were ready. Pirates attacking trade routes found themselves facing human frigates that couldn't be intimidated. Aggressive species seeking to expand through force met human soldiers who had trained in conditions that made war look easy. Natural disasters that would have overwhelmed Council resources were handled by humans who had dealt with worse on Earth. Visited the main human base on the rogue planet they called Sanctuary. It was a fortress built into ice and rock, powered by artificial fusion cores. Thousands of humans lived and worked there, maintaining the fleet and training new recruits. You've changed the galaxy, said Taminu as they walked through the base. We just showed you a different way of existing, Minu replied. The Council built a civilization of peace and beauty. That's valuable, but peace needs guardians. someone willing to stand in the dark places and keep watch. And that's you forever. Minu stopped walking. He looked at with those predator eyes that no longer frightened the crystalline being. Not forever. Eventually, you'll learn to defend yourselves. Maybe you'll even find other species like us, forged in hostile worlds and trained for survival. But until then, yes, we'll stand watch, because someone has to, and because your people are worth protecting. Later that night, stood on an observation platform, looking out at the stars. The galaxy seemed brighter now, safer, not because the dangers were gone, but because there were beings willing to face those dangers. Somewhere in the dark, human ships patrolled. In harsh environments across the galaxy, human bases stood ready. On training grounds, council species learned to be stronger than they thought possible. The age of the Devourers was over. The age of the Guardians had begun. And from the dark reaches of space, where radiation raged and gravity crushed, they kept watch. And tired and hurting, but always vigilant, always ready, always there when needed. Because that's what humans did. They endured, they protected, they survived. And they never, ever gave up.